The Aeneid. Selections from Book 12. Part 2. Please make sure you have watched pages 1 to 7. Now for the text. Page 8. The story is that when he was mounting behind his yoked horses to start the battle, in eager haste he left behind the sharp point of his father. In his alarm he had seized the sword of his charioteer Metiscus. It had served its purpose for a long time while the Trojans were turning their backs in struggling flight, but after it had come against the arms of the god Vulcan, the sword made by the immortal shattered like brittle ice in one blow, and the fragments glittered in the yellow sand. There is an antithesis of Aeneas' armour, which was made by a god, and Turnus' armour, which was made by a mortal. This makes the difference between god and mortal stand out more. The difference between the swords also reflects the whole battle between Turnus and Aeneas. Does what happens to Turnus' sword show what will happen to Turnus? The sword shattering like brittle ice shows that the Turnus can be shattered like that too. The last part is a simile. The page is one sentence. This shows how eager Turnus is and how fast the sequence of events is happening. Remember that Virgil repeatedly does this to emphasise that these pages are only in a matter of seconds. The last two lines have such rich imagery to really get our emotions to feel the mood of the piece. Page 9. Then mad Turnus makes for different parts of the plain in flight, and now here then there he interweaves in aimless circles. For he is hemmed in by a ring of close-packed Trojans from all sides. On one side a vast marsh, on the other side lofty wall. Nunc hic inde hic, now here then there, Turnus is everywhere in both mind and body. The repetition of hic shows how hopeless Turnus' situation is. The word order at the start of the page is hectic to reflect the confusion of Turnus' situation. The ring of close-packed Trojans is like a gladiator's ring. Turnus has now been turned into a hopeless beast facing loads of gladiators. Page 10. No less eagerly Aeneas pursues him. Although his knees, slowed by the arrow wounds, sometimes hinder him, and deny their usual speed, and hotly presses upon the foot of his panic-stricken foe with his own foot. And just as when the stag, having been caught by a bend in the river, or hemmed in by the scare of crimson feathers, the hunting hound pursues it with running and attacks it with barks. There is a chiasmus ABBA on line 52. Also on line 52 there is an anaphoron. This means that the pedem pede is emphasised by repetition for effect. This emphasis shows that Aeneas' foot is right behind Turnus. Aeneas' name has not been mentioned for 22 lines. This shows that Aeneas has respect, and as his opponent is mentioned so often, it shows antithesis between the two. The alliteration of C sums up what is happening to Turnus, servum and cursu canis. Page 11. But that stag, terrified by the snare on the high river bank, flees backwards and forwards on countless paths. But the eager Umbrian clings to it with open jaws. Every moment seizes him, or as though he has seized him, snapped with his jaws, and he is baffled by this useless bite. Then truly an uproar arises, and the river banks and the lake respond round about, and the heavens thunder with all confusion. There are many literary devices on this page, including a polysyndeson, use of many conjunctions, alliteration and repetition, the amount of times the dog tries to seize him, an ellipsis of the stag in the first sentence. These devices add to the hectic nature of the scene and how the deceit of Turnus is a jumble of things. The position of Tertius on the first line is trapped between the ripper and the altar, Ripper Tertius altar. Towards the end there is personification of the riverbanks and the lakes, referring back to the time when Aeneas was elemental and showing that everything in the world was watching. Page 12. Turnus at one time fleeing and at the same time approaching. Calling all the Rutulians each by name, demands his own well-known sword. On the other hand, Aeneas keeps threatening death and instant destruction. If anyone at all should approach and terrifies the trembling foeman, continuing to threaten to destroy the city and presses on though wounded. The first two lines have a hectic word order, emphasising Turnus' rush to action. The ellipsis of Turnus shows that Turnus is still like the frightened stag. Turnus' name is taken out earlier than his death, it is foreshadowed. On the second line there is a pleonasm. Turnus calls the Rutulians each by name. This simple and easy gesture shows how desperate Turnus is. The familiarity between Turnus and his soldiers shows the difference between Aeneas who is threatened. The onomatopoeia of terraque trementes sounds like teeth chattering from being terrified. The last two lines start with X, showing everything is being casted away from. At the end of the passage, it finishes with though wounded. This is to make Aeneas seem amazing, because he has done all of these things while he was wounded. Page 13. They complete 5 circles at full speed, and they unweave as many hither and thither. For no light or sporting prizes are at stake, but they compete for the lifeblood of Turnus. There is alliteration, Levia and Ludicra. This emphasises that they are not competing for a prize, even though the story before is made it seems so. There is the litotes on line 68. This means the text uses a negative to express a strong positive, thus making this sentence be emphasised more firmly. There is a hendiades on line 69. Hendiades is the use of two nouns together to express a noun modified by an adjective. For example, vita et sanguine. The hendiades on page 13 emphasises that it is Turnus' whole being, not just his life, and it will affect his bloodline too.
I'm